the PHP client for Neo4j. So if you missed the other episodes, what we're trying to do here is to build a medium.com clone in PHP. So the backend obviously uses PHP, the PHP client for Neo4j, and Neo4j as a database. The front end, we're not really developing it. There are front ends available already. So the project is actually called realworld.io, and you have, the running test suite to make sure you can implement the features properly. So before we go to that, and Ghlen shows what is done, I just wanted to remind you of a few events that might be of interest for you. So for that, let me share my screen. So in case you missed it, Graph Connect is happening pretty soon. It will be in person in Austin, so early June, between 6 and 8. And if you have submitted a talk, you should get an answer, I believe, this month. So I think the deadline still holds. So you will know, in a couple of weeks at most. And so we still have available seats, I believe. So if you want to register, just go to graphconnect.com and grab a seat before it's too late, and then enjoy all the presentations about the various usage of Neo4j. And the second one, which was announced yesterday, so it's pretty recent, is the launch of Graph Data Science version 2, so a new major version, as well as the launch of Aura for data science, short name Aura DS. So if you want to learn in detail about it, you can, of course, read about the announcements, and there will be a special webinar in 13 days from now, so 26th of April, that you can subscribe to. So for people residing in Europe, this will be around 5 p.m. UTC, so 6 or 7 p.m. I'm lost with the summer and winter time, so I'm not exactly sure, but it's 5 p.m. UTC. I will let you do the conversion from there. And as I was talking about, we are now going to resume our work on the real-world.io backend, real-world.io just being a medium.com clone with a set of specs runnable. And when I say our work, I'm not really doing any justice to Ghlen, because Ghlen is actually doing the work. I just do the introduction code talk. So anyway, enough talking. Let's get some more action. And so I leave the stage to you, Ghlen. And before that, of course, if you have any question during the stream, just ask away, and we'll do our best to answer. I will monitor that closely. Thanks everyone, and enjoy the show.
Hello everyone. Thank you, Florent. As always, we are still developing the real world app. If I remember correctly, the previous episodes started to become relatively boring because by the end we were doing kind of the same stuff. We were implementing some of the endpoints, and the queries started to look a lot like each other. So I have prepared all the other endpoints right now because there is nothing really new about it. So I don't know if you guys can see my screen. I think Florent has the ability to share the screen. Yeah, there we go. So all the endpoints right now are implemented. I will show you. So there is the profile section, the articles we did together, the tags we did together. So I also did the comments and the favorites. I also added some basic tests. But because we really didn't think ahead of time, I just started to implement it, and you will see the code is quite spaghetti. There will be some code duplication. Some places won't. I will have some hidden bugs. So in order to tackle that, I thought it would be interesting to live stream how we can create some sort of repository pattern which you can use in each controller. So today will be more of a refactoring episode. And then if we still have some time afterwards, we still haven't done the slugging. We haven't done the bugs in the slug interface. So we can do that as well. And I think it will be a miracle if we still have some time after that. But if we do have some time, we can also start by doing the indexes in the database. So we can write a command that we can run that will create all the necessary indexes and stuff like that, and constraints. So yeah, let's get started. So as I said, there are quite a few more endpoints. So if you're going to take a look in the app HTTP folder, there are the controllers, and you can see there is a comment controller, there is a favorite controller, there is a profile controller. And the pattern should already be relatively recognizable. So this is a lot of code we have duplicated. Every time if a user has to be authenticated, we use this pattern where we check where we go to the auth helper function by Laravel, request the user. If it's null, return a 401, and otherwise we continue. So we'll solve that one relatively shortly. And then, yeah, the profile controller is still relatively simple because it only concerns itself with the users. So when we're talking about profiles, I don't really know why they use that naming scheme, because if we take a look at the endpoints, it's basically about followers. So you can see it is about, if we get a profile, we will see if the user is logged in, and if he is logged in, if it follows the user, stuff like that. But this entire logic is also used in the article controller, for example, because in the article controller, if you take a look in the documentation, the article controller is here. If you see, we get an article, there is an author section. And in the author section, we get the same logic. So there's following, username, bio, image. And because we didn't really think ahead of time, we forgot about this in this implementation in the article controller. So it doesn't check whether you are logged in and if you are following the user. So if we have a main repository pattern, we should be able to solve these things. It should also ease testing and stuff like that. So let me think if there is something else special about this. So yeah, I use some helper methods. Things become even a little bit more chaotic if you're going to take a look in the comment controller, because a comment also checks the author. And once again, it'll check if the author, if you're following that one, stuff like that. So there is a lot of room for improvement. But in the end, the basics still work. So I did create some basic tests, and I believe if I run them, yeah, so they all work. But I think one of the main things is, because right now we are still doing naked cipher queries. I hope by the next stream we will be using Neo4j. So if you're using Eloquent, which is like a major piece in the Laravel framework, which we aren't using right now, we should see a lot less code being used. So what we can do is we can start defining comments beforehand. We can start defining comments and models, user models, favorite models, stuff like that. And then we use them as data bags right now, but we can extend them as models later on to build the queries. So if we go ahead and take a look at exactly which types of resources actually exist, like there is quite a lot of stuff going on here. It's a little bit too much, but the basics is we have comment objects, we have article objects, and we have user objects. And we can start by working with that. So if we go ahead, the user essentially already is done for us. So we have so it's already a model in here. But if we go ahead, there is also let's take a look. So the user it's not hard coded right now, but it should have an email, a token, a username, a bio, and an image. Let's take a look at an article. An article, if you take a look here, it has a lot more information. There is a slug, a title, a description, a body, Text is also an object. That's timestamps, whether or not it is favorited, and then an author. So let's start with the article objects, because if we start to create articles, if we start to create the models beforehand, we can use that as a starting point to create a repository that has like the basic stuff like get article, get comments, stuff like that, and we can pass in objects and stuff like that. So let's create an article. And as I said, we won't be extending it as a model. We will be using it as a standard data bag. And I think we can use PHP 8 features, so maybe even 8.1. Let me double check if we have. I think, yeah, we are just using our own PHP installation. So if I go ahead and take a look, we have version 8.1 installed. So maybe we should start with that. We should start using these kinds of features. So yeah, let's go ahead. We have let's do a public read-only slug. Yeah, and of course it starts complaining because we have said it. Yeah, so switch it to PHP 8.0. Let's make it, yeah, let's make it 8.1, just so we can remove some code duplication. So yeah, private read-only, public read-only string. So that one is a string. And then we have title, description, body. Title, description, body. Tags. So in order to have tags, we should create a tag class. There we go. Read-only array tags. And in order to get completion, we should say these are tag, like that. Other than tags, we have created that, updated that. So those are datetimes. Let's use interface. Created at, updated at. Then whether or not it is favorited, favorites count, yeah. Public read-only bool favorited. Favorite count, and then favorites count. And then we have the author. So that's a user. Public read-only user author. So yeah, we have our first article object. And then we have comments, I believe, and tags. So a tag is very simple. It's basically just a string. So let's make it simple. We have constructs, private, public, read-only string value. Yeah, so that's an easy one. And then we have article tag and comment. So when we're talking about comments, we should have, let's take a look. So if we can get the comments of, yeah, so we have an ID, timestamps, a body, and then author as well. So public read-only int ID, public read-only datetime interface, update at, and created at, and then yeah. Now, because we have all these different objects, we can use like hydration patterns and stuff like that to to show it in a uniform way. So these are the models. And now what I think would be best is let's start with the easiest one. The easiest one is the user controller because the users live on their own. So let's create a user repository. All right. And we should compare that. Let's split screen. And we should compare that with the user controller. There we go. And we should start cleaning these things. So when we're talking about the user repository, what it should have is a basic session object. So private read-only session. Yeah. And then, of course, we should have something like public function find based on find by email, string email, and that should return a user object. And then again, we can use this entire thing, I believe. So there we go. Our user, these are the properties, the credentials. It should be, so we pass the parameter email. And then, of course, we need to return the user. I think we can even make it, because right now, let's do it like this. Result. If results equals null, no new, let's say, model not found. Is that something we can start using? I don't know, to be honest. No, we have to, let's not do it like that. So let's just, we can think about the exceptions later. Let's call it a runtime exception for now. Cannot find user with email. Printf. There we go. And then all we have left to do is we can steal this code. So we will read the properties are equal to, we get the result, the first row, so that's the index at 0. We will get it as a node because we are returning it as a node. And then we get the properties. And now we can map the properties to the user object. So there we go. Let's take a look. So no. So it is when you're looking at a user, this is the only one that, so there's email token, username, bio. Oh, we can also look at it like this. So the token isn't there, we can do it like this. And then because we are using PHP 8, we can do something like this. Yeah, of course, this is the only one that isn't truly, we can make this a lot easier. Yeah, we can just pass the properties like this, I believe. So one of the things that that we also need to take care of is show whether or not we are following it. So what we can do is use a basic feature in Laravel. So what we can do is do something like this: public function get following attribute. It's a bool. Yeah. Let me think if this is the easiest way. I think, you know what? This is the only one that is already using models. It's starting to get a bit confusing. I will call this one a user model, and then I will create a user which has the same basic idea. So we do it like this. Construct public read-only string username. So we have a username, we have a bio, we have a image, and we have following. And then we have also the token. We should keep it like this. Yeah. So we have username, bio, image. This is a lot better. Can I revert back? No. So let's go back to the user controller. Let's copy paste this again. There is an email as well, of course. Username, email. So here we are again. Do it like this. Email, username. So what's it complaining about right now? Yeah. User, and then we have following. And following should be relatively easy because, yeah, following isn't really that easy. Yeah, the following maybe is easier if we remove this one in here and we can use a repository pattern. So find by email. Next up, yeah. So this is find by email, and then we have public function public function following. And that should return a boolean. Now the question is, do we use two user objects? Maybe that's the easiest. User A, user B. Now let's keep it with email. Email A, email B. So the following part hasn't been implemented in the user controller because, as I said, it is starting to become very difficult to keep track of everything, which is why we are consolidating it into other objects. But if we take a look in the profile controller, we will find it somewhere here, I believe. Following result get self. Yeah, so we do use it somewhere around here. Yeah, we have an optional match. So if you want to do the following part, what we can do is return this session run. Do a basic match. So basically what's going to happen is we will match it based on email A, and then we got user email B. I think let's make it a little bit clearer. Email A, email B. What's it complaining about? Undefined variable. Yeah, so that should be email A, email B. For those that don't know what the compact function does, it looks at the names here and the variable names if they're equal, and it translates it to an array with the same key and value pairs. So it's writing this is the same as writing email A equals email A, email B, if that makes sense. So the compact function and these are the same. So it's very typical in PHP to use this compact function. So what we're doing is we are matching it, checking whether this user follows the other one. If it does, we'll have a match and we'll return something. If it doesn't, we will not return anything. So all we have to do is check against is empty. Yeah, I took the wrong session, the basic one. So yeah, it'll check whether or not it is empty. So we have a following one as well. And why is this one? This condition is always false because result is always evaluated at this point. Yeah, so what we need to do is if result is empty. And following means it should not be empty, like this. So, and because this is not very readable, we will do result. This is a lot better. So we get the result and we check if it's not empty, they follow each other. If it is empty, they're not following each other. Yeah, that's great. So you can find by email. We have the following. I think it's easier, like because I'm thinking about it now. It's easier to use find by username because it's always username that's being used. It's only me here that is using email, but all the endpoints are using username, so it's probably a lot faster to use find by username. And then we have username here. Not find user with username. Perfect, and then all we have to do is change the get out identifier. So user, because otherwise user model it is. So we have a get out identifier, we're getting the email, but we should be getting the username. That should solve a lot of stuff. And now we can already start refactoring quite a lot of stuff. So instead of getting a session, how are we going to do this? That is a nice way to include this pattern, because what we still have to do is do a profile. Yeah, so username, bio, image. Yeah, I think it's easiest if we create a presenter or something like that. So we have our user repository, we have our user object, and then there should be an object responsible for displaying it. So what we can also add right now is let's do a user user JSON, or let's call it something like that. And it'll need the user repository as well. I think it's easiest like that. And then we have a public function get as profile. So if we are going to take a look at our user, let's use a profile controller right now because we're looking at this. So what we can do is we will return username bio image, and then of course we have the following, which is why we needed the repository. Both user get auth identifier. And of course this can be nil, so we can do something like this. We can wrap it around an, oh, we don't even need optional anymore because we're using PHP 8, so we can do it like that. And then it can still be nil. So this will always return false because the user will always have an email, so the query won't match otherwise. So we have a get as profile. So I think we can go back to the profile controller and we can start by adding a user repository and a user JSON presenter. Then let's do it like that. And this one as well. And there we go. So that's a bit shorter now as well. So we can remove all the parameter stuff. And then we can say, so if we want to get a profile, what we will do is this use repository, find by username, requests. Oh no, we got the username right there. So we get it by a username. We can remove this. And then all we have to do is return response JSON. The data will be profile and we will add this presenter get its profile. So yeah, I think that is a good way of doing things for now. The follow profile, this one should be relatively easy. So because we have this authenticatable layer, it's actually really easy. If we go to the API documentation, instead of doing it like this, we should be able to simply go to our profiles, follow. We can add, I think, what's it called? Middleware. Let me double check because I'm not that. So Laravel authentication. If we are looking here, protecting routes, yeah, middleware oath, that's it. So because we are using already the built-in auth functionality in our app service provider right here via request, it'll be able to use the authentication built-in method. So this should work. So because of that, this is redundant. And then for following a profile, let's go back to the user repository. And what we can do is following. So public function follow string. Yeah, because this should be username. A, username B. Before I forget, let's double check. Yeah, so so username A, username B. This can just be a void method. All we have to do for implementing the following profile, username A, username B. And then we can use compact again, username A, username B. We might be able to return the user to make things simpler, to be honest. Get user, let's build a helper method, get user from a result. Yeah, and then of course we can do this as empty check there as well. So we can reuse this to both are summarized results. So there we go. We don't need our PHP doc. Yeah, and we will add a username as well. So this method will get a user based on the u variable, and it will check whether or not it exists. So the follow should do the same. We will merge and then return the user. And all we have to do now is return this get user from result. Let's make sure this is private. Yeah, it is. Get user from result. Results. So in order to fix this one, all we have to do is user is equal to this repository. Follow username A will be ourselves, so that is oath get user get oath identifier and username. So now we will say the logged in user will also follow the other one. Because we're using merge, it won't matter whether or not it happened already, because we first match the two existing nodes and we merge the relationship, so it'll only be created if it exists. We shouldn't care because a null pointer exception won't occur here, because we will add the oath middleware. And then, of course, all we have to do is return it like this. Should work. Let's take another look at the UI. So if we're taking a look here in the article, no, this you're going to the, yeah. So you go to post, now we will see it'll return the profile. So this is a follow profile. And then, of course, all we have to do is do the unfollow. Let's take another look here. What is it supposed to return? Again, the profile. So I think all we have to do is copy paste this like that. We will unfollow the profile. But instead of using follow, it should be unfollow. This, of course, won't exist yet. So let's do it like this. This part can be removed. This part can be removed. Then the session. And we will return the user. So let's take a look at this query. Yeah, this should work. And all we have to do here, we have follow and we have unfollow. So I think we can copy paste this code here. And then username A, username B. And all we have to do, instead of doing a merge, we'll do a delete. Both will be username A, username B. We will return a user. And why is this? Required parameter username is missing. So that'll be about username B in this case. Same here. Username B. So we have a follow profile, unfollow profile. I'm looking and we are already past 45 minutes. So maybe we should start looking into the tests, whether or not they still work. It'll be a miracle if it still works from the first time. So let's double check. We are looking at our profile controller. Let's take a look. So it's here. So session isn't used anymore. We can simply remove it. There we go. So we only depend on a user repository and a presenter. So that's quite decent. We also need to do validation. So the controller will do validation, calling the repository, and presenting and calling the presenter. So that's a logical pattern. So for get profile, it'll find it by the username. You know what? Instead of double checking, let's just take a look. So the favorites and no, it's the profile integration test. Let's take a look. Test follow profile. Does it still work? Of course. Cannot find user with username Alice. Where are we? Yes, of course, because it depends on the user endpoint, and user endpoint still assumes that it is email. So let's go to the user controller. I'm thinking whether it's worth it to also refactor this one immediately. You know what? Why not? So we go back to our user repository. We need to do the entire thing now. So we have follow, we have find by username. We also need a find by email for another endpoint. Username. Email. So let's remove this one. User repository. We have a user repository and a private read-only user JSON presenter. Yeah. We can remove this one. So we have credentials, user response from array. Yeah. So the user also has a password hash. So we shall add that one as well. There we go. And now we can see here password hash. User password hash. There we go. So what we will do is this repository finds by email. There is find by email. Find by email. That'll be in the credentials email. That is our user, which we already have. We can remove this. What do we do then? We have our user. That is password hash. We did a check here. We can keep that one. And then we have our user response from array. And let's go to our user JSON presenter. So we have a get as profile. Let's change that one to present as profile, to be honest. And then we have a present as user. We have our email, which needs to be added, our username, bio, image, and then instead of following, it needs to have token GWT. Let's take it this helper method. That's our token. We can refactor this later on. You can keep it in here. So our JWT create token user. So the user response from array can be removed, and instead we can use the presenter. Present as user. And of course we need to do JSON user. See with the time. Okay, so we have at least 10 more minutes. That should be doable. So this is login. So what it does is we get our email, we check the password, and then we can do it like that. Yeah. It's why is it still present as user? Why is it grayed out? Unused element present as user. I don't think so. Okay, or my editor is. We don't really care about the array shape attribute. Let's disable that inspection. So create. Let's go back to the user repository. Let's take a look. Yes. So in order to create, what do we need to do is public function create. We need a email, a username, and a password. We will return. Need to return the user. Maybe it would be nicest if we also return the user. All right. So we go this session run. Let's just copy paste this. There we go. So email, username, and password. And then we do a let's call it U, so we can use our helper method. So there we go, we have our results. And now we will return this get user from results. Yes, we can just use that one, right? Because we created it. Yeah. We will need to U. Makes sense. And then our username. There we go. So yeah. And then all we have to do is remove this. Well, maybe let's keep it a little bit simpler. What we will do is user equals this repository create user email, user username, user password. And then instead of doing user response from array, we can do it like that. and then we set the status code. So we return a response with the provided user, and we set a status code. So that looks pretty clean. That's our create. Update one, we can keep it like this. Of course, we are focusing on email here. This should become username. We've changed it to be more uniform. Still return a JSON response. Let's take a look at the time. This is going to be close. I don't know why we are using get here. This might still be something old. So we have create and then public function updates. We have string email. Username, string bio, string image, and we will return the user as well. So get attribute user. Maybe we can, if this is becoming relatively complex. Let's take a look. We check here again whether or not the username exists, and whether we are changing our own, and then we of course start merging it, and that's when we are getting a little bit out of control. But I think, yeah, we can just copy paste this, to be honest. Return, and there we will also return the user. Result equals this, and then we will return this get user from results. And then we get the requested user. Maybe it would be simpler if we would yeah, so this array merge will become a little bit tricky right now. But I don't think it will matter for our profile section. So maybe we will leave it at this because our profile doesn't use update. So we can still refactor it like this. We won't be changing the status code. And then we will do user is equal this update repository update. Just to stay within the time limit, which is already going to be extremely difficult. Let's take a look at our profile integration test. Because the profile integration test creates a user, creates two users, logs in. Yeah, this is going to be tough. Received 500, wrong number of segments. Yeah, okay, I think it won't be wise to start working on this. So it should be for our next live stream. Yeah, it will definitely be for our next live stream. But something is going on here. in our web tokens. So, that means that the token we are trying to decode isn't really correct. I think we can take a quick look. Let's just look at one screen at a time. So it becomes an issue here. Let's debug, see what happens, what our token looks like. So take a look. Yeah, it's empty. There we go. So there is a bug when we log in. Yeah. So in our response, what does it look like? Our base response. L500. There we go. I wonder why it didn't trigger an error. Cannot use type app model user as array. There we go. So I think if we do it like this, response assert status 200, it should give us a nice text trace. Okay. User as array. Of course. Yeah. So we create from our user, which is a user object. And then, of course, we are trying to use it as an array. So we need to do this email, username, bio, image. Another look. Yeah, of course, now it does perform assertion, so we can remove this. So that one works. And then we have another one, cannot find user with username Alice. So let's take a look in our database. So that'll be localhost 74. IO is empty. That's strange because our username is still Alice. So that makes me think that username A. There we go. Username. And then expect Alice and return Bob. So we're getting close. Yes. So let's go ahead and look at our profile controller. Back to follow profile. Here we go. So user A and user B. I think this is just an ordering issue. So we will follow the username. Yeah, self, switch them. There we go. So we did a successful refactor. All right. So 4 minutes behind the schedule. As I said, the refactor is quite a little bit of work. So I will do the rest behind the scenes so we can start with a new overview. And then we'll probably, before starting integrating Neo Eloquent, we will first then do some of the validation layer and stuff like that. And then we can start talking a little bit about Neo Eloquent. So yeah, thank you for your time. If there are any questions, I will still take them. Let me stop sharing my screen. And that's basically it.
So thanks and congrats for fixing the errors. Up until the very end. That's no small feat. So congrats for keeping your cool and doing it. I don't see any questions right now. So yeah, I think we can conclude this session, and so we'll see each other in a couple of weeks to continue the work. Until then, yes, have a good rest of your day, everyone. Of course, if you have follow-up questions, we have several ways to contact. We have Discord, we have community.neo4j.com, etc., etc. So many ways to reach out to us if needed. So thanks everyone, and so yeah, see you very soon. Bye bye.
Bye.